There's a reason that our history is hidden from us, especially in times like today. If you don't know who you truly were, that could be a problem for them. In the late 1960s, the Federal Bureau of Investigation developed what is famously now known as the Counterintelligence Program, aka COINTELPRO. Its mission was to surveil, misinform, misdirect, and destroy the black community. The main intention of COINTELPRO was to prevent the rise of a black messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. Its true extent wasn't known until years later when a group of leftist activists broke into the FBI office and mailed out over 1,000 classified documents to journalists in what we now refer to as the Watergate scandal. Throughout the major moments of the black freedom struggle, the FBI listened, they watched, they sabotaged. Our subject today would go on to be one of the main targets of this COINTELPRO program, and her life is like a movie. If you've seen the movie One Battle After Another, I'm almost sure they based Tiana Taylor's life on Assata Shakur, except the snitching part. Stick around to see how the story ends. Now, this sister we know as Assata Shakur wasn't always named Assata. Born Joanne Byron in Flushing, Queens, she was the oldest of two. She grew up in New York City and Wilmington, North Carolina. She became involved in political activism at Borough of Manhattan Community College and City College of New York. After graduation, she began using the name Assata Shakur and briefly joined the Black Panther Party. She says she left the Panthers when she started to notice things were off. Now, get this. The gun-toting, police beefing, stealing, exterminating, bad mother was not real enough for Assata Shakur. Now, before her departure from the Panthers, she mentions that strange things would begin to happen. Things like receiving strange phone calls and packages. People would come into the Black Panther New York headquarters and have nervous breakdowns. All kinds of weird. The police would harass the Black Panthers. Strange men would follow her. The FBI even went as far as to forge a letter and sent it to one of the leaders. The letter stated that they were plotting to kill Huey P. Newton, the leader of the Black Panther Party. The FBI then signed the letter as the New York branch of the Black Panther Party. Diabolical work. Good old dusty-ass, closeted homosexual J. Edgar Hoover working his spirit fingers. You see, this was aimed at getting the Black Panthers to dismantle themselves from the inside. Now, dig this. Miss Assata Shakur stopped paying her phone bill, and yet her services was never disconnected. Even after she left the Black Panthers, she states that she felt her life become more and more impossible. Impossible ain't even the word for her story. But she was still being followed by what she called detectives. Strange people visited her neighbors. Even after she left the Panthers, the police had raided her apartment for no apparent reason other than the fact that she was a member of the Black Panthers. After her departure from the Panthers, she joined the Black Liberation Army. Now, the BLA was on some whole nother other shit. The Black Liberation Army was a loose-knit offshoot of the Panthers, which engaged in armed struggles against the United States government. Now, think of the Black Panthers if they was really using the weapons they held. See, this is why our history is so important. I guarantee you were never taught about this in school. Shit, if I was the oppressor, I wouldn't want the people I conquered to know about these either. You won't believe the type of they would get into. But stick around.
You're gonna learn today.
The Black Liberation Army, or the BLA, was an underground Marxist, Leninist, black national militant organization that operated in the United States from 1970 to 1981. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying they wasn't around with the around. The type of niggas that would have burnt down the entire Woolworths building had them crackers did that to them during the fight for integration. The BLA was composed of former Black Panthers who served above ground, i.e. the square world, before going underground. The BLA's program was straight up war against the United States government, and its stated goal was to take up arms for the liberation and self-determination of Black people in the United States. Yeah, let that sizzle in your spirit. The BLA carried out a series of bombings, police killings, robberies, and prison breaks. They made Black Lives Matter look like the Milton Road Boys Club. Alright, now back to Assata. During her time with the BLA, Assata was outside. And by 1971, Assata Shakur was charged with several crimes and was the subject of a multi-state manhunt. On the run from crimes including assault, robbery, in which she was identified or charged and wanted for questioning, including attacks on New York City police officers and bank robberies in the area. Not no stick-up kid shit, she was robbing banks. Now, while doing the race or on the lam for the square world in 1971 at the Statler Hotel in Midtown Manhattan, there was a group of men, there were guests in the hotel, gathered in a room when they heard a faint tap at the door. According to the police, their guards were down when they saw the petite 4'9" Assata Shakur, who asked, "Is there a party going on in here?" Before the guests could even respond, Assata drew down, brandishing a revolver and demanding money, but the men in the room weren't going, and a struggle ensued, resulting in a bullet wound to Assata Shakur's stomach. The failed robbery was presumed to be connected to extorting a drug dealer for money. And in an interview in 1987, Shakur confirmed to a journalist that there was a drug connection in this incident, but she refused to elaborate. After the botched robbery, she was apprehended and charged with attempted robbery, felonious assault, reckless endangerment, and possession of a deadly weapon, then released on bail, before being acquitted on a technical error. Years later, in 1987, in that same interview with the journalist asked if there was a drug connection in the incident, but she refused to elaborate. When pressed to elaborate, she only offered that she was glad to have been shot. Afterward, she was no longer afraid to be shot again. And believe it or not, shit gets even crazier with Assata. August 23rd, 1971, a petite woman in a trench coat, bucket hat, dark shades, robs a bank in Queens, New York. A photograph of a woman who was later alleged to be Assata Shakur wearing thick rimmed glasses with a high hairdo pulled tightly over her head and pointing a gun was widely displayed in banks. The New York Clearing House Association paid for a full-page ads displaying material about Shakur. Shakur was sought and wanted for questioning. December 21st, 1971, a hand grenade attack that destroyed a police car and injured 2 police officers in Maspeth, Queens. Shakur was named by the New York PD as one of the 4 suspects. After witnesses identified Shakur from the FBI photos, a 13-state alarm was issued 3 days after the attack for Assata and her alleged boyfriend at the time, Andrew Jackson. Law enforcement officials in Atlanta, Georgia said that Shakur and Jackson had lived together in Atlanta for several months in the summer of 1971. On January 26, 1972, a Brooklyn police officer was attempting to serve a summons in connection to an $89,000 Brooklyn bank heist that took place on March 1st, 1979. The police officer didn't leave Assata with the summons, but he did leave with a wound. Shakur was identified as wanted for questioning after a September 1st, 1972 bank robbery in the Bronx. Based off FBI photos, Monsignor John Powell's alleged that Shakur was involved in the armed robbery at Our Lady of Presentation Church in Brownsville, Brooklyn on September 14th, 1972. So let's do the math. She allegedly hit 2 banks and a Presbyterian, I don't even know, some kind of church, and laid anyone out that stood in her way. Black Lives Matter could never. In 1972, Shakur became the subject of a nationwide manhunt after the FBI alleged that she led the BLA cell that conducted a series of cold-blooded murders on NYPD officers. The FBI said this included the execution-style murder of NYPD officer Joseph Piagenetti and Waverly Jones on May 21st, 1971. Sheesh! And NYPD officers Gregory Foerster and Rocco Laurie on January 28th, 1972. I'm reading this in disbelief. Shakur was alleged to have been directly involved with the Foerster and Laurie murders and involved tangentially with the Piagenetti and Jones's murders. As of February 17, 1972, when Assata was identified as one of 4 BLA members on a short trip to Chattanooga, Tennessee, she was wanted for questioning in relationship to police killings in Chattanooga, a Queens bank robbery, and as of February 1972, she had been wanted for questioning in relation to police killings, bank robberies, and hand grenade attacks on police. Shakur was reported as one of 6 suspects in the ambushing of 4 policemen in Jamaica, Queens. By June 1973, the FBI had it. They had enough. They created a joint task force and were issuing daily briefings on Shakur's status and allegations against her. The FBI and local police initiated a national search and destroy mission for Shakur. Like they weren't even trying to arrest her at this point. Like, she got to be taken off the board. She's causing too much damage. On May 2nd, 1973, at about 12:45 a.m., Shakur, along with Saeed Malik Shakur and Sundiata Acquitals, all members of the Black Liberation Army, was stopped on the New Jersey Turnpike in East Brunswick, New Jersey, for driving with a broken taillight by state troopers James Harper and Warren Foerster, who alleges the vehicle was slightly exceeding the speed limit. Sundiata Acquitals was driving. Assata Shakur was seated in the right front seat, and Zaid Shakur was in the right rear seat. Trooper Harper asked the driver for identification, noticed a discrepancy, asked them to get out the car, and questioned him at the rear of the vehicle. A shootout then ensued in which Trooper Foerster was shot twice in the head with his own gun and killed. Zaid Shakur was killed, and Assata Shakur and Trooper Harper were wounded. According to initial police statements, at this point, one or more of suspects had begun firing with semi-automatic handguns, and Trooper Foerster fired 4 times before falling mortally wounded. At Acquitals' trial, Harper testified that the gunshot started seconds after Foerster had arrived at the scene. At the trial, Harper said that Foerster reached into the vehicle, pulled out and held up a semi-automatic pistol and an ammunition magazine and said, "Look what I found, Jim," while facing Harper at the rear of the vehicle. The police ordered Assata Shakur and Zaid Shakur to put their hands on their laps and not to move. Harper said that Assata Shakur reached down to the right of her right leg, pulled out a pistol, and shot him in the shoulder, after which he retreated to behind his vehicle. Harper said he saw Foerster shot just as Assata Shakur was hit by bullets from Harper's gun. Acquitals fled the car, which contained Assata Shakur, who was wounded, and Zaid Shakur, who was dead or dying 5 miles down the road. The vehicle was chased by 3 patrol cars down the turnpike. Acquitals stopped and exited the car after being ordered to halt by a trooper, fled into the woods. Assata Shakur walked toward the trooper with her bloodied arms raised in surrender. Acquitals was captured after a 36-hour manhunt involving 400 people, state police, helicopters, and bloodhounds. Zaid Shakur's body was found in a nearby gully along the road. According to reports, Assata Shakur was on her way to a new hideout in Philadelphia and heading ultimately for Washington. A book in the vehicle was said to contain a list of potential BLA targets. Assata Shakur testified she was on her way to Baltimore for a job as a bar waitress. Thus, the ending of the saga of Assata Shakur. Nah, that's cap. If you thought it was over with, you're sadly mistaken. With gunshot wounds in both of her arms and shoulder, Assata Shakur was captured and moved to the Middle Essex General Hospital under heavy guard and was reportedly in serious condition. Trooper Harper was wounded in the left shoulder, reported in good condition, a protective guard at the hospital. Assata Shakur was interrogated and arraigned from her hospital bed. Shakur was tried and convicted on 8 counts, 2 murder charges, and 6 assault charges. Upon hearing the verdict, Shakur said in a barely audible voice, "I am ashamed that I even took part in this trial, and that the jury was racist and had convicted a woman with her hands up." When Judge Appleby told the court attendants to remove the prisoner, Shakur herself replied, "The prisoner will walk on her own feet." You know how black women get. Shakur was sentenced to 26 to 33 years in state prison, where she was kept in solitary confinement for 21 months straight before being transferred from prison to prison. Some of the institutions she was held in, Shakur was the only female prisoner. That's right. Shakur would sometimes be housed in an all-male corrections institution. That's so fucking dangerous, dog. Finally, in 1979, she was transferred to Clinton Correctional Facility. November 2nd, during what appeared to be ordinary visiting hours, 3 members of the Black Liberation Army names were already cleared and properly listed on Assata's visitor list. The militant visitors walked calmly into the prison's visiting area and waited patiently for Assata to emerge from behind the walls that hid some of America's most unwanted. Moments later, once in arm's reach, the illusion shattered. Hidden weapons were drawn. 2 dusty-ass .45 caliber pistols with black electrical tape around the handles and a stick of dynamite. 2 prison employees, a correctional officer, and the van driver were swiftly overpowered and taken hostage before alarms could sound. Within minutes, the prison van rolled forward, hijacked. Inside were the escape team and Assata Shakur, moving across prison grounds in plain sight towards the adjacent state school. There, the van was abandoned, and before anyone had the chance to process what had happened, they were in the wind. And the kicker? One last heist financed the entire operation. They hid for $105,000 from a Baumgartner store in Paramus, New Jersey. They landed in the one place who hated the company culture of hate, racism, and oppression disguised as freedom, called the United States of America, even more than the Black Panthers or the BLA. Fidel Castro welcomed them with open arms to a conclave of ex-freedom fighters who was almost chewed up by the very system they were fighting, political fugitives. Cuba took her in, where she called home. She slept with one eye open and head on the swivel, constantly looking over her shoulders because every new face she encountered might be the ops looking to slime her out. That after the government placed a $1 million bounty for her capture in 1979, the FBI then upped the bounty to $2 million for any information leading to her arrest in 2013, all the way until her death on September 25th, 2025, at the age of 78, due to health conditions and advanced age. I mean, love her or hate her, she really spilled blood behind the liberation of Black Americans. I want to know your thoughts. Do you believe there's a conspiracy about them not teaching us our history? I mean, we know Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, hell, even Jim Jones and Jeffrey Dahmer. But do we really know who put on for our liberation? Give us a like, a share, and even a follow. You're going to learn something about yourself for sure.